The morning sun filtered through the tall trees, painting the forest floor with golden patches of light. Alara woke to the soft sound of breathing and movement near her cabin. She opened her eyes and saw the wolf lying on its side, still resting but alert. Its golden eyes followed her every move, sharp and intelligent, yet calm. Alara smiled softly. "Morning, Shadow," she whispered. She had named the wolf Shadow the night before because of its dark fur and mysterious presence. Shadow blinked slowly, then lifted its head and padded closer to her. It nudged her hand gently as if greeting a friend. Alara had never felt such a strong connection with an animal before. Shadow was different. There was something in the way it looked at her, as if it understood her thoughts. She had spent all night thinking about it. The wolf's intelligence, its loyalty, and its strange, careful movements. It was not like any wolf she had ever seen. After breakfast, Lara decided to examine Shadow's injured leg again. She carefully unwrapped the makeshift bandage. The leg was swollen but not worse than the previous day. She applied some fresh herb paste and wrapped it again. Shadow didn't resist. Instead, it pressed closer, as if encouraging her to continue. Over the next few days, Shadow's strength slowly returned. It began moving more freely, testing the injured leg with cautious steps. Alara watched with a mixture of relief and awe. The bond between them grew stronger each day. Shadow followed her everywhere, and Alara started noticing small things, like how the wolf reacted to her gestures, her tone of voice, and even her thoughts, as if it could sense them. One afternoon, while Alara was chopping wood near the cabin, Shadow froze suddenly. Its ears perked up, and it growled softly, low and warning. Alara stopped, heart pounding. She looked around, but saw nothing. Then, from the trees, a group of creatures appeared, wolves. Larger and darker than Shadow, with fierce eyes and sharp teeth, they moved silently, circling Shadow and Alara. Alara instinctively stepped back. Gripping her chopping tool like a weapon, Shadow stepped forward, placing itself between Alara and the intruders. It growled, deep and commanding. The other wolves hesitated. Shadow's stance was not just defensive. It was confident, commanding, almost like a leader asserting authority. Alara watched, amazed. Shadow's eyes glowed faintly, and it gave a low, warning bark. One of the intruders growled back, but it did not attack. Shadow's presence alone kept them at bay. Alara realized something astonishing. Shadow was not just a wounded wolf. It was a leader, a protector, something more than ordinary. Her mind raced. Could this wolf have been important in its own world? Was it part of a larger pack? And why did it seem to understand her so well? For the next several days, Alara observed Shadow closely. It began showing behaviors that no ordinary wolf would. Shadow seemed to plan its movements carefully, guarding the cabin, keeping watch while Alara slept. It reacted to subtle changes in the environment, almost predicting danger before it happened. One evening, as Alara prepared a small meal, Shadow nudged her hand, then stepped back and howled softly. Its howl was not the usual wolf sound. It had a musical tone, rich and deep. Alara felt a shiver run down her spine. The sound seemed to carry meaning, almost as if it were calling someone or something. Curiosity burned in Alara's mind. She began talking to Shadow, asking simple questions, almost as if it could answer. "Do you understand me?" she whispered one night, sitting beside the fire. Shadow tilted its head, ears twitching, then nuzzled her hand. It was a gesture of recognition. Alara's heart skipped a beat. The wolf understood her. Somehow it truly understood. Then came the first signs of the truth. One night, Alara woke to find Shadow standing rigid, staring into the darkness of the forest. The air felt charged, electric. Shadow's fur bristled, and its golden eyes glowed faintly. Suddenly, it transformed, its body stretched taller. Muscles rippling, its form becoming more majestic and almost humanoid in posture. Alara gasped. She had never seen anything like it. Shadow was no ordinary wolf. Its movements were precise, powerful, and full of intelligence. The glow in its eyes was no longer subtle, it radiated awareness and authority. The wolf she had saved had a secret far bigger than she could have imagined. Shadow returned to its normal wolf form after a moment, but the change left a mark on Alara's mind. She realized that Shadow was not just a wolf, it was something extraordinary. Perhaps it was part of a species she had never seen, one that could think, plan, and even communicate in ways humans could barely understand. The days that followed were filled with tension and wonder. Shadow began leading her into the forest, showing her paths she had never noticed before, hidden clearings, safe water sources, places full of herbs and edible plants. It guided her with precision, as if teaching her how to survive better in the forest. Alara grew to trust Shadow completely. She shared her food, her shelter, and even her thoughts. And Shadow, in turn, protected her fiercely. One evening, while Alara was repairing her cabin roof, she slipped and almost fell. Shadow leaped, grabbing her shirt in its jaws and pulling her to safety. Alara's heart raced, and she hugged Shadow tightly, grateful and amazed. "You saved me," she whispered, tears in her eyes. "Now, I don't know what I'd do without you." Shadow nuzzled her gently, as if acknowledging her words. Then came the day when the secret could no longer be hidden. Alara had been following Shadow deep into the forest, where he led her to a hidden clearing. In the center stood a large stone circle, etched with symbols she did not recognize. Shadow stepped into the center, and its body began to change again, this time more clearly. Its head lifted, revealing features that were not entirely wolf-like: sharp, intelligent eyes, a strong jaw, and a presence that radiated authority. Alara stumbled back, her mouth dry. Shadow, the wolf she had saved, was the alpha king of its species. She could hardly believe it. The creature she had risked her life for was not just a wolf. It was a ruler, a leader, a being with power and influence far beyond the forest around her cabin. Shadow's eyes met hers. There was no fear, no hostility, only recognition and gratitude. Alara felt a shiver of awe. She realized that by saving this wolf, she had unknowingly saved the life of a king, a leader whose survival could change the balance of power in the forest, and perhaps even beyond. The forest around them seemed to hold its breath. Alara stepped forward cautiously, reaching out to Shadow. It lowered its head, touching her hand lightly. The gesture was simple, but it carried meaning, trust, respect, and a bond that went beyond words. Alara understood. Then that she was no longer just a human living quietly at the edge of the forest. She was part of something bigger, something extraordinary. Shadow's enemies might still be out there, seeking to finish what had started, but with her help, the Alpha King had a chance. As the sun set, painting the sky with streaks of orange and red, Alara sat beside Shadow. She whispered to him, sharing her thoughts and fears, and the wolf listened with quiet understanding. She knew the road ahead would be dangerous, that she would face challenges she had never imagined, but she also knew that together they could survive. Shadow, once a wounded wolf, was now a powerful ally and, perhaps, a friend. Alara's heart swelled with determination. She had saved a king, and in doing so, she had changed her own destiny forever. And deep in the forest, shadows moved silently, watching, waiting. The Alpha King had enemies, and they would come. But for now, Alara and Shadow had a moment of peace. A bond had been formed, stronger than fear, stronger than danger, stronger than anything the forest had ever seen. Alara stroked Shadow's fur, her eyes filled with wonder. "I don't know what comes next," she said softly, "but I'll face it with you." Shadow nudged her hand, and for the first time, Alara felt that she was truly not alone. The forest whispered around them, alive with the sounds of creatures preparing for night. Alara felt a thrill of excitement mixed with fear. Her life had changed forever, and the story had only just begun. Tomorrow, they would face new dangers, discover new truths, and confront enemies they could not yet imagine. But tonight, she had the Alpha King at her side, and that was enough to give her courage. For the first time in her life, Alara felt that she belonged to something greater, and that humans, no matter how small or fragile they seemed, could make a difference in worlds far beyond their own. The city of Lycanthera stretched beneath the twin moons like a living jewel. Its spires and towers gleamed with silver light, and the streets buzzed with creatures of every kind, Volf hybrids, humans, and rare beings from distant worlds. Alishan had never seen anything like it. She clutched the small satchel at her side, her heart pounding. Today was the day she had always been warned about, the grand mating ceremony of the Alpha King. Alishan's legs trembled as she approached the palace gates. She had always been humanor, so she thought, but some hidden part of her had always felt different. Her instincts often nudged her in ways she could not explain, the way she could hear faint footsteps long before anyone else, or how she could sense the slightest change in someone's emotions. Until now, she had ignored it. Today, she would discover what that difference truly meant. The palace gates opened automatically at her approach, recognizing her ceremonial invitation. She stepped into the vast courtyard, her eyes widening at the sight before her. Hundreds of wolf hybrids dressed in ceremonial garb moved gracefully, their fur shimmering with colors she had never imagined. The air was filled with music that sounded like a harmony between wind and growlitune that vibrated. Deep in her chest, Alishan clutched her satchel tighter. She had been warned about etiquette, about the rigid seating arrangements. Humans were seldom allowed in the inner circle. She was not supposed to sit near the royals. And yet, as she stepped into the main hall, she froze. There, at the center of the hall, was a chair that seemed to command attention. It was empty, but the Alpha King himself would soon occupy it. And without thinking, she walked straight toward it. "Oh no," a small voice inside her screamed. But her feet continued moving, almost guided by some invisible force. She reached the chair beside the center throne. The golden insignias of the royal line shone on the armrests. She lowered herself gently onto it, hoping no one would notice. But in a room full of sharp senses, nothing went unnoticed. The hall fell silent the moment she sat. The murmurs spread like wildfire. All eyes turned toward her. Wolf ears twitched, tails flicked, and eyes glinted with curiosity, suspicion, and some with amusement. Alishan swallowed. She had made a mistake. But before panic could fully set in, he appeared. The Alpha King entered. His presence was impossible to ignore. Tall, muscular, with fur that glinted silver under the twin moons, he moved with a predator's grace. His eyes, sharp and golden, scanned the hall. When they landed on her, something strange happened. His pupils narrowed, and a faint scent of recognition crossed his features. Alishan felt a shiver run down her spine. "Why is he looking at me like that?" she thought. His gaze was not angry, it was curious, intense, almost knowing. The Alpha King approached. Every step he took made the air seem heavier, as if the room itself acknowledged his authority. "You are human," he said, his voice deep and commanding. "But there is something else about you." Alishan's heart skipped a beat. I'm just human," she stammered, trying to sound confident. "I was invited to witness the ceremony." The king's eyes narrowed further. "No," he said softly. "You are more than human. You're sent. It is not fully human. You carry the wolf line. Half Volf, perhaps." Lycan froze. She had never told anyone about her heritage. She didn't even know herself. Her mother had always told her she was fully human, and yet, as she looked into the Alpha King's piercing gaze, something inside her stirred. It was a memory, a feeling she had long ignored, the sudden rush of speed when she ran. The way her senses sometimes felt sharper than anyone else's, the faint echo of a howl in her blood. Could it be true? The crowd began whispering again. Some looked shocked, some fearful, and a few curious. A human sitting beside the Alpha King was shocking enough, but a half-Volf human, that was almost unheard of. Alishan felt all eyes on her, and she wished she could disappear, but she could not. Somehow, she felt as if she had been drawn here for a reason she did not yet understand. The Alpha King extended a hand. "Stand," he commanded. His tone was firm, yet not unkind. Alishan rose, her heart pounding in her chest. He leaned closer, and she could feel the faint vibration of his growler sound that sent shivers through the hall. "You will come with me," he said. "There is much to discuss before the ceremony continues." Lycan nodded, though a part of her wanted to protest. She did not understand why he had singled her out. She had not done anything special. And yet she followed, her human mind racing with questions. As they walked through the grand corridors of the palace, she caught glimpses of paintings and sculptures depicting alpha kings of the past. They were all wolf hybrids, powerful, proud, untouchable. And now she walked beside one. Finally, they reached a quiet chamber overlooking the palace gardens. The moonlight spilled through the tall windows, casting silver streaks across the marble floor. The Alpha King motioned for her to sit. Lycan obeyed, careful not to disturb the regal air of the room. The king leaned against a carved stone pillar, studying her with intense focus. "You carry the blood of the wolf," he said finally. "It is rare, almost lost. Humans with your scent are special." He paused, his eyes flicking to her hands, her posture, the subtle movements of her body. "Do you know what this means?" Lycan shook her head. I don't. My mother said I'm human." The king's expression softened slightly. "Your mother may not have known, or perhaps she chose to hide it. But your instincts, your senses, they tell the truth. You are not fully human. You are. A bridge, Lycan repeated. The word sounded strange, but somehow right. "Yes," he said. "A bridge between humans and wolves. Between our worlds. And today the ceremony will test not only your courage, but your true nature. You will learn what it means to carry both lines." Lycan swallowed hard. Her thoughts spun. She had come to observe a ceremony, to witness the grandeur of Lycanthera. She had not expected to be chosen, recognized, singled out. And yet, the more she looked at the Alpha King, the more she felt a strange connection, something deep in her blood that responded to him. To his presence, he stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Do not be afraid. Tonight you will see who you truly are. And the ceremony. It will not be as simple as it seems. There are eyes watching, not all friendly. Some will question your presence. Some will resent it. But you must remain strong. Your heritage. Your courage. It will guide you." Lycan nodded, feeling both fear and excitement. She had always felt ordinary. Now, for the first time, she felt special. She felt powerful. Her senses tingled, the faint scent of the night air, the rustle of leaves in the garden, the soft hum of distant music. It was as if the world itself had become sharper, clearer, more alive. The Alpha King straightened and motioned toward the door. "Return now. The ceremony awaits. And remember, watch, listen, and trust your instincts." Lycan followed him back to the main hall, her mind racing. She had no idea what would happen next, but one thing was certain. Her life had changed forever. Humans were rarely celebrated here. Wolf hybrids were respected, powerful, and she was something in between. Something new. Something that could surprise even the Alpha King himself. As they re-entered the hall, the crowd had begun to murmur again. Some stared openly. Some tried to hide their curiosity. Lycan took a deep breath and straightened her back. She would face this moment no matter how frightening. She would show them that even a human a half-wolf human could stand beside an Alpha King. She would not hide. She would not run. The Alpha King gave her a small nod, a gesture of encouragement. And in that instant, Lycan felt a strange warmth fill her chest. She was ready. Ready to step into a world she had never known. Ready to face the unknown. Ready to embrace the half-wolf within her. The ceremony began again. Music swelling, lights shimmering, and the gathered crowd waiting. And in the midst of it all, Lycan sat beside the Alpha King, not just as a human observer, but as someone extraordinary. Someone who carried the blood of wolves in her veins. Someone who might change everything.